By the late 1960s, rock was branching out in many directions. Psychedelia was everywhere. But underneath it all, another movement was quietly starting to take shape, blending influences from classical, jazz, folk, and ambitious studio work. Back then, people didn't call it progressive rock yet. Instead, critics used the term progressive pop, music that stretched beyond simple pop formulas, with longer, more complex songs, orchestral textures, and bold studio experimentation. These experiments hadn't yet found a clear label, but they planted the seeds of what we now recognize as progressive rock. To mark its birth, most critics point to the release of King Crimson's In the Court of the Crimson King in October 1969, widely seen as the defining moment when prog truly arrived. But the story doesn't begin there. In this video, we're traveling back to the years before Crimson, exploring 16 classics that carried the adventurous spirit of prog, even before the genre had a name. So, without further ado, let's begin.
I love the colorful clothes you wear.
Released in October 1966, The Beach Boys' Good Vibrations is more than a psychedelic pop classic. It's often seen as one of the earliest steps toward progressive rock.
I'm picking up good vibrations. She's giving me the excitation.
Conceived by Brian Wilson as a pocket symphony, the track abandoned traditional verse-chorus form in favor of a modular structure built from dozens of recorded fragments. With abrupt shifts in mood, orchestral textures, and layered sound design, it felt closer to a miniature suite than a pop single. Wilson used the studio itself as an instrument, blending cello, electro-theremin, ocarina, accordion, jaw harp, and lush vocal harmonies into an otherworldly soundscape. The distinctive voice-like electro-theremin not only defined the track's sound, but also anticipated the synthesizer's future role in rock. Consuming more than 90 hours of tape and unprecedented production costs, Good Vibrations proved that pop could be avant-garde, ambitious, and still dominate the charts. Originally intended for pet sounds but cut when unfinished, the single ultimately stood as Wilson's boldest experiment. Together with the symphonic ambition of pet sounds, it redefined the artistic scope of rock and laid crucial groundwork for the progressive movement to come. Opening the piper at the gates of dawn. Astronomy Domine is one of the earliest examples of rock music deliberately venturing into cosmic and conceptual territory, qualities that would later define progressive rock. Its pioneering nature lies in a complex, unconventional structure that breaks from the era's pop rock norms. The song begins with cryptic Morse code and eerie spoken word effects, evoking transmissions from deep space, before shifting into sharp guitar chords and dynamic drum rhythms. Barrett's surreal, star-filled lyrics, paired with Richard Wright's haunting Farfisa organ and stereo panning effects, create a layered, immersive soundscape. Sudden tempo changes further enhance its otherworldly character, pushing far beyond typical pop boundaries. Astronomy Domine is considered proto-prog for its fearless experimentation, merging rock with intricate structures and astral themes. It laid the groundwork for the ambitious explorations of progressive rock in the 1970s, marking a pivotal moment in Pink Floyd's early sound, and showcasing Barrett's role as the architect of their cosmic vision.
Nights in white satin.
The Moody Blues began as a rhythm and blues band, scoring a UK #1 and US top 10 hit with Go Now in 1964 to 1965. By late 1966, financial struggles and personnel changes prompted a bold new creative direction. Departures of guitarist Denny Lane and bassist Clint Warwick paved the way for John Lodge on bass and Justin Hayward on guitar and vocals, whose songwriting talents sparked a fresh, ambitious vision. Released in 1967, amid the psychedelic rock wave, Days of Future Past blended rock with orchestral elements in a way few had attempted. Early reviews were mixed. Rolling Stone dismissed it as conceptual goo, while New York Magazine labeled it thought jello, reflecting critics' struggle to categorize its sweeping arrangements, Mike Pinder's mellotron textures, and unconventional song structures.
I'm just beginning to see. Now I'm on my way.
Yet these very elements helped lay the foundations of progressive rock, a genre the album pioneered without a name. Steady FM airplay and the enduring popularity of Nights in White Satin eventually propelled the album into the US Top 10 by 1972. Far more than its commercial centerpiece, the track captured the very essence of what the Moody Blues were striving for. Written by Justin Hayward at just 19, Nights in White Satin blends youthful longing with timeless melancholy, heightened by the interplay of orchestral grandeur and mellotron textures. The London Festival Orchestra provided the sweeping introduction, the climactic final chorus, and the haunting final lament, while the main body of the track relied on Mike Pinder's mellotron, whose string and flute sounds became the Moody Blues' signature. This fusion gave the song a cinematic scale without losing its intimacy. Structurally, it moves less like a conventional pop single and more like a miniature suite, flowing through hushed verses, swelling crescendos, and a dreamlike flute solo. Unlike many love songs of its era, Nights in White Satin conveyed poetic vulnerability and introspection, delivered through Hayward's aching vocals. What critics first dismissed as sentimental soon revealed itself as groundbreaking, expanding both the sonic and emotional boundaries of rock. More than a hit, the track distilled the Moody Blues' orchestral rock vision and cemented their place at the dawn of progressive rock. Released in 1967, Procol Harum's A Whiter Shade of Pale stands as one of the clearest bridges between Baroque pop and the emerging world of progressive rock. Built around Matthew Fisher's haunting Hammond organ line, inspired by Johann Sebastian Bach, the song infused classical counterpoint into a rock setting, something virtually unheard of in popular music at the time. Its fusion of bluesy soul vocals from Gary Brooker with stately church-like organ harmonies created a solemn, almost symphonic atmosphere. The enigmatic, surreal lyrics further distanced it from standard 1960s pop, hinting at the abstract and literary tendencies that Prog would later embrace. Unlike straightforward love songs of the era, its imagery was opaque, poetic, and open to interpretation. Rather than just a hit single, A Whiter Shade of Pale was a quiet revolution. Its Bach-inspired organ lines and dreamlike poetry showed that rock could reach for classical depth and literary nuance. The song's success proved listeners were ready for something more ambitious, paving the way for the grand symphonic branch of progressive rock that would soon follow.
Turn the whiter shade of pale.
Rondo by The Nice. The British band formed in 1967 with Keith Emerson, keyboards, Lee Jackson, bass vocals, David Olist, guitar, and Brian Davison, drums, is a landmark track bridging psychedelic rock and the early roots of progressive rock. Originally based on Dave Brubeck's jazz classic, Blue Rondo a la Turk, The Nice transformed it into a high-energy rock piece that fuses jazz, classical, and rock, core elements of proto-prog. The 1967 studio version, From the Thoughts of Emerlist Davjak, runs 7 minutes and 53 seconds and exemplifies the raw ambition of early progressive experimentation. It defies conventional pop and rock structures, combining Brubeck's 9/8 motif with Emerson's blistering Hammond organ, intricate guitar work, and driving drums. Its adventurous spirit and chaotic energy marked it as a milestone, influencing early Genesis and other pioneering acts of the era. By 1969, the live version on Nice evolved further. Without Olist's guitar, Emerson's organ dominates, delivering explosive solos, extended improvisation, and richer dynamics. Closer in approach to what Emerson would later develop with Emerson, Lake, and Palmer, Rondo 69 demonstrates fully realized complexity and virtuosity. While King Crimson's In the Court of the Crimson King, 1969, is often credited as Prog's starting point, the Nice's work illustrates the genre's gradual evolution, making Rondo 69 a true milestone in the birth of progressive rock.
Sitting alone on a bench with you.
When producer Norman Smith left Pink Floyd after shaping The Piper at the Gates of Dawn, he carried that same spirit of experimentation into his work with The Pretty Things. The outcome was Defecting Grey, 1967, a single that feels less like a conventional track and more like a surreal collage of moods. It drifts through pastoral folk passages, then jolts into fuzz-heavy guitar blasts, carnival-style organ flurries, and tape manipulations that unsettle the ear.
You've seen it all, but you're broken.
Its uniqueness lies in constant transformation. Just as the listener begins to settle in, the music twists into another form, unfolding as a compressed mini-suite that anticipates rock's turn toward longer and more fragmented storytelling. For a group grounded in British R&B and garage roots, this was a daring step. By dismantling familiar song shapes and piecing together contrasting fragments, The Pretty Things didn't just mirror the psychedelic chaos of the late 60s. They hinted at how rock could be reimagined as something fluid, unpredictable, and theatrical in scope. Emerging from London's psychedelic underground and inspired by the iconic cultural event of the same name, the Sin's 14-hour Technicolor Dream captures the restless experimentation that marked rock's transition into something more ambitious.
At the 14-hour Technicolor, 14-hour.
The track blends swirling psychedelic textures with extended organ passages and shifting dynamics, moving well beyond the standard verse-chorus formula of 1960s pop. Its surreal lyrics and kaleidoscopic atmosphere reflect the countercultural spirit of the time. Yet the arrangement already hints at a new sophistication, layered, expansive, and cinematic. With Chris Squire and Peter Banks in the lineup, musicians who would later help found Yes, the Sin embodied the moment when psychedelic rock began stretching towards symphonic and conceptual horizons. 14-hour Technicolor Dream stands as a stepping stone, a vivid snapshot of the late 60s scene just before the arrival of fully fledged prog, when bands were testing the limits of what rock songs could sound like. Dantalian's Chariot's only single, The Madman Running Through the Fields, 1967, is one of those cult gems where psychedelia begins to morph into something more forward-looking. Fronted by organist and vocalist Zoot Money, the band created a track that feels both of its time and ahead of it. On the surface, its swirling organ, jagged guitar lines, and surreal atmosphere capture the Technicolor chaos of late 60s psychedelic London. Yet, beneath the haze, there's a striking sense of structure and purpose.
Isn't that the madman running through the fields? Isn't that the madman?
What makes the song stand out is its lyrical and conceptual ambition. Instead of typical pop themes, it delivers a kind of allegorical, almost existential narrative. A madman running through the fields as a metaphor for society's rejection of those who see the world differently. This turn toward symbolic storytelling would later become central to progressive rock, where bands embraced myth, philosophy, and allegory as core subject matter. Drawing on both folk tradition and free-form experimentation, the Mad Hatter's song unfolds like a surreal journey. Acoustic guitars, hand percussion, and shifting vocal deliveries weave together in unpredictable ways, giving the piece an almost dreamlike elasticity.
Do what you like, do what you like, do what you like.
At this stage, the incredible string band had slimmed down to the duo of Robin Williamson and Mike Herron, whose relationship was marked by both creative independence and frequent clashes, each only embracing the other's songs if he could shape the arrangements and harmonies. For this album, they were joined by Danny Thompson on double bass and Licorice McKechnie on vocals and percussion.
Musky fingers moved your pain.
Listening to the track feels like stepping onto shifting ground. Moments of calm give way to sudden twists that keep the song in motion. In blending narrative-driven folk with improvisational freedom, the song anticipates how progressive rock would later merge storytelling and sonic exploration, resisting pop convention through its openness to wander. It stands as a turning point, signaling the group's move toward the richly psychedelic folk style that would define their most celebrated work.
Hooked by the heart to the king.
I read the news today, oh boy.
The Beatles' A Day in the Life, the breathtaking finale to the 1967 album Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, is less a pop song than a small epic stitched from fragments of dream and reality. Lennon opens with verses that feel distant and surreal, his voice floating over sparse piano and guitar, while the band leaves an unusual 24-bar gap filled only with counting, echo, and a ringing alarm clock. That accidental sound becomes the doorway into McCartney's brisk, everyday narrative of rushing out of bed, a sudden shift of tone that plays like a film cut.
Woke up, fell out of bed, dragged a comb across my head.
From there, the track expands into something unprecedented, a 40-piece orchestra building from the lowest notes to the highest, surging in chaotic waves of atonality until it erupts like the end of the world. The swell collapses into the final verse, then returns once more, before dissolving into the legendary E major chord, struck by multiple pianos and left to resonate for over 40 seconds, fading until the faint noises of the studio become part of the performance.
I read the news today, oh boy.
By the time the silence arrives, the listener has passed through dream, routine, chaos, and resolution. An odyssey contained within 5 minutes that feels at once unsettling, otherworldly, and strangely intimate. It was this boldness in structure, sound, and studio craft that made A Day in the Life one of rock's definitive proto-prog statements, opening a path where rock could intertwine with classical grandeur, where song forms could melt into larger visions, and where the studio itself could breathe as an instrument. The Doors' The End, the sprawling 11-minute centerpiece of their 1967 debut album, feels less like a rock song than a ritual unfolding in sound. From the opening, Robbie Krieger's guitar lines shimmer with a sitar-like resonance, weaving against John Densmore's patient rolling drumming and Ray Manzarek's hypnotic organ figures. Together, they create an atmosphere both intimate and ominous, as if the music were breathing on its own.
Can you picture what will be?
Over this slow-burning backdrop, Jim Morrison delivers words that drift between poetry and incantation, visions of love, apocalypse, and Oedipal confrontation, his voice moving from whispered fragility to anguished eruption.
Waiting for the summer rain.
The song refuses the boundaries of conventional form. It grows, recedes, and swells again, less a verse-chorus structure than a journey of escalating intensity. By the time the climactic storm breaks and then dissolves into silence, the listener has been carried through something closer to a trance than a performance.
He walked on down the hallway.
In its length, improvisational spirit, and fusion of rock instrumentation with theatrical poetry, The End pointed toward new possibilities for rock as a vehicle of extended transformative experience. That audacity places it among the defining proto-prog statements of its era. Music as ceremony, collapsing song into vision. Soft Machine's Hope for Happiness, which opens their 1968 self-titled debut, captures the moment when psychedelia began mutating into something far more daring. Recorded in New York City during their spring US tour with the Jimi Hendrix Experience, the band, now a stripped-down trio after the departures of Kevin Ayers and David Allen, embraced a flexible format of organ, bass, and drums that gave Robert Wyatt's drumming and vocals an unusually central role. Produced by Chaz Chandler and Tom Wilson, the album framed their sound with both restraint and openness. The track itself unfolds less like a pop song than a shifting soundscape. Cyclical vocal lines lead into drones and bursts of noise before unraveling into passages of free-form interplay. Instead of chasing hooks, it sustains tension through repetition and sudden changes in texture, drawing the listener into a sound world that feels perpetually on the verge of change. Appearing on Caravan's self-titled 1968 debut, Love Song with Flute captures the essence of the Canterbury sound in its formative stage.
Listen to me now, I'm needing you.
At first glance, it is a delicate psychedelic ballad, but beneath the surface lies the adventurous spirit that would soon drive progressive rock. Pi Hastings delivers wistful, almost ethereal vocals over shimmering organ textures and gentle guitar lines, creating a dreamy atmosphere characteristic of late 60s psych. What elevates the piece beyond its era, however, is Jimi Hastings' flute solo. Fluid, melodic, and slightly jazzy, it transforms the song into something more expansive than typical pop or rock. The track flows with an understated elegance, avoiding rigid verse-chorus repetition in favor of a looser, more atmospheric structure. This balance of melody, texture, and instrumental color makes Love Song with Flute a quintessential proto-prog moment, bridging psychedelic pop's sweetness with the sophistication and subtle complexity that would soon define Caravan and the broader Canterbury scene.
Who cares if I'm lost in my mind? My dreams are overdue.
Opening the United States of America's only album, the American Metaphysical Circus instantly throws listeners into a surreal carnival of sound. Instead of a traditional rock introduction, it begins with a dizzying swirl of calliope-like electronics, tape loops, and collaged noise, evoking the chaos of a midway before the song itself even starts. When the music finally settles, Dorothy Moskowitz's cool, detached vocals arrive, contrasting sharply with the sensory overload around her.
And the price is right. The cost of one admission is your mind.
What makes the track remarkable is not just its avant-garde surface, but its deliberate construction. Joseph Bird, a composer with roots in the experimental classical scene, uses ring modulators, early synthesizers, and musique concrete techniques to fuse rock instrumentation with academic modernism. The result is both jarring and strangely beautiful, a piece that refuses the boundaries of rock convention. Often regarded as one of the earliest signposts toward progressive rock, Happening's 10 Years Time Ago is a psychedelic single that breaks far beyond the conventions of mid-60s pop.
Meeting people along my way.
Featuring both Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page on guitars, the track weaves a chaotic, almost otherworldly soundscape full of jagged riffs, distorted feedback, and eerie guitar interplay that feels more like sonic experimentation than traditional rock structure. Its fragmented arrangement, cryptic lyrics about reincarnation and déjà vu, and sudden shifts in atmosphere anticipate the exploratory spirit that prog bands would embrace just a few years later. Where many psychedelic tracks of the era aimed at dreamy escapism, the Yardbirds instead pushed into darker, more abstract territory, suggesting that rock could function as an avant-garde medium. In hindsight, Happenings 10 years time ago sounds less like a product of 1966 and more like a rough draft of the progressive revolution to come. Frank Zappa's The Return of the Son of Monster Magnet, the sprawling 12-minute closer to Freak Out, 1966, is less a finished song than an audacious experiment. Subtitled An Unfinished Ballet in 2 Tableaux, it unfolds in 2 parts, Ritual Dance of the Child Killer and Nullus Preti, No Commercial Potential. The first half rides on insistent rock drumming and jolts of piano, while voices chant, grunt, or yelp in strange counterpoint, building a ritualistic energy. The second half drifts into manipulated vocals and tape collage, dismantling the idea of a rock track altogether. Zappa even weaves in a sly quotation of Louie Louie, a wink at pop tradition inside this chaotic mass. Though Zappa later admitted the piece was unfinished, budget constraints halted its development. The roughness becomes part of its power, with guests like Dr. John at the piano and Van Dyke Parks present in the studio. The track blurs rock, avant-garde, and theater into something untamed yet visionary. What remains is not a polished song, but a raw, unpredictable journey. An early signpost that rock could stretch into territories no one yet knew how to label. Astonishingly, this on a debut album in 1966. And that's it. 16 works that sounded progressive, even before the genre had a name. Which one do you think pointed most clearly to the future? Did we miss a favorite of yours? Drop it in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more journeys into rock history.